But the question remains whether they have enough support in the Senate to make it through the confirmation process. So joining me now, we have our good friend, Democratic Congressman from Massachusetts, Jake Auchincloss. He also sits on the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure and the Select Committee on Competition with China. Welcome. What do you make of Trump's public show of support for Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard? And I'm curious from what you're hearing from your Republican colleagues. Will they get through the confirmation process? Because Gabbard is reportedly struggling in some of her meetings with senators.
Alex, thanks for having me back on. I'm just happy RFK wasn't there with them. Unfortunately, looking at the last decade, what is the case with Senate Republicans is they huff and they puff and then they fold to Donald Trump. And so my presumption is they're going to do similarly with these two picks, even though both of them are grossly unqualified for office. And I imagine that these one-on-ones that Tulsi Gabbard is having are really painful because she's a Bashar al-Assad apologist trying to talk to senators, many of whom know their stuff on foreign policy, at a time when current events in Syria are front and center. I bet she's in over her head and coming across as both suspect and as unqualified for the post. But my concern is she's going to be a heat shield for RFK. And RFK is, if anything, more dangerous than Gabbard in the role that he is trying to assume. His number one legal aide is a committed anti-vaxxer who is going to be going after not just the polio vaccine, but the measles vaccine as well, at a time when there's a half dozen states in this country where herd immunity rates for measles are hovering at the level below which there will be outbreaks.
I'm curious, do you think there are chances that even if these more controversial picks, Gabbard, Hegseth, Kennedy, get confirmed, that it's going to be the revolving door that we saw during the first administration? Or is the Trump team coming in better prepared this time?
Boy, Alex, you're asking me to predict the vicissitudes of a second Trump administration.
Okay, I'll move on. No, I'm just kidding.
There's a lot of egos and a lot of incompetence. So, yes, I expect a game of musical chairs. Doesn't mean that they can't do some damaging things, though. If RFK fuses his personal brand with the organs of state, he can drive vaccine uncertainty, particularly for the measles and polio vaccines, which collectively have saved more than 100 million lives in the last 50 years. And this can really affect people's lives intimately.
Can you imagine if there was a return of those two diseases in this country? Let's not imagine it for now. We're not there yet.
To.
Okay.
Yeah, look at Samoa, look at Pakistan.
100%. All right, well, let's talk about Trump's invite list to his inauguration. It includes an unusual name, Chinese President Xi Jinping. CBS News reports that Xi is declining the invitation, but what does it tell you that the offer was made?
I'm not involved in the party planning for the Trump administration. I think he's got a big ego and wants to see other world leaders sort of supplicate themselves to him. But, you know, the thing about an American presidential inauguration is that the guest list has never been what impresses the rest of the world. What impresses the rest of the world is the fact that since John Adams handed over power to Thomas Jefferson, we have had peaceful transfers of power between parties, that the greatest democracy in the history of the world is able to have these exchanges of authority despite the intensity of our politics. And that was true until January 6, 2021. And nothing Donald Trump does in his inauguration in the next couple of months will ever wipe away the dishonor of what he did in January of 21.
Let me turn now to Syria with you, because Secretary of State Antony Blinken says that the U.S. has made direct contact with the HTS rebels after the fall of Assad's regime. A joint statement with Arab nations called for a hopeful, secure, and peaceful future. Trump implied the U.S. should largely stay out of what's happening in Syria. But how do you expect Republicans to handle it? And what kind of role do you think the U.S. should play? And should troops remain to fight ISIS?
Yes, American troops should stay on the ground right now. These are special operations. These fellows are well-trained, well-equipped, well-supported for high-intensity operations, and they've been there for a decade now. We don't have the luxury of pulling back from events in Syria, and I don't think congressional Republicans would want to. We need at least three things to happen there. Number one, we need the incoming government to respect the rights of Kurds, of women, of other minorities. Number two, we need them to exclude any terrorist elements from Syrian territory and not give them safe harbor, ISIS, of course, in particular. And then number three, they have to adopt a stance of non-belligerence to Israel and to their other neighbors. Those three things are true. I think we can engage productively with HTS or whatever the de facto and then de jure government becomes. But we cannot just turn around and walk away. That's not an option we have.
Okay. You were on the Transportation Committee. You also served in the Marines. So what do you make of the drone sightings that we're seeing across several states? The FBI now says that many tips turned out to be just regular manned airplanes flying into the 3 major New York area airports, though there have been some drones. Is the concern about all of this overblown? And if officials are saying these aircraft don't pose a threat, what do we know about him, particularly these 100 that need to be further investigated?
So first, I think Jim Himes, who I know you had up previously, said it well. He's the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, and what he says we can take to the bank, that this is not Iran or China trying to attack the United States. But the public does deserve more information and faster. I'm a member of the Transportation Committee, Alex, as you said, and last Congress, as we were reauthorizing the Federal Aviation Administration, I was working with the NFL and, in particular, Gillette Stadium and the Patriots in my district to delegate more authority and more intelligence about unmanned aerial systems to the level of stadium operators and state police so that they can respond more quickly to drone incursions, because we're in this phase transition in the skies where it used to be that drones were a relatively rarefied and expensive piece of equipment that only governments would have or corporations would have. Now tons of people have them. Our mentality has to change. It can't just be the FAA with all the information and authority. We've got to delegate down to state and local actors so that there's more information, more authority to take them down if necessary, and just more public accessibility. Okay, Congressman Jake Auchincloss, always a pleasure. Happy holidays if I don't see you before them. Thank you. Coming up next, we're getting unique